all I've been thinking about for, I'm gonna be real, the past few months is painting. How there were masters who painted these masterpieces, how they studied so many hours and hours into it, and how absolutely beautifully executed all of these paintings are. But this is where my delusion comes in. I feel like I could do the same thing, and spoiler, I can't. So hi everyone, I'm Ward and welcome to my channel, Ward Draws a Lot, and this week we're going to be using these wonderful heavy body acrylics to create a, not a masterpiece, but a piece. Is going to be a piece of something. As you can see here, I already have a canvas with the sketch drawing on it. I did gesso the canvas first, then afterwards I went on top with, just pencil and sketched what I wanted to from there, which is of course Nicky. He's my muse. Whenever I try out a new medium or trying something new, he's always the first thing to come to mind, just because I don't want to waste time thinking about what type of character to draw or what type of being. So I default to him because he's like a comfort space, one that makes me feel like, hey, maybe I can conquer something, because he's like a comfort character in a way, even though he's like an OC, you know what I mean? Okay, so let's talk about the paints here for a second, right? So I decided to go with a heavy body acrylic. Why? Because if I used regular acrylics, it would have dried in about 0.2 seconds, which is not good if you're trying to, color in an entire space, blend everything out, and kind of create smooth transitions and stuff, and also mix paint. So here's the thing, right? With heavy body acrylics, you have some breathable time, right? It's not like oil paints where it takes forever to dry, and it's not like acrylics where it dries up in 0.2 seconds, like the second it hits the air that you pour it into the palette, like it's done, it's already gone. So the heavy body acrylic is like this nice little middle ground where you have playable time, but it does dry quick enough. So I thought that was the best option for me. I'm low-key scared of oil paint, which is why I didn't bother to buy any or try. It's because, number one, it does take so long to dry, so I know myself, I'm not patient enough to have it dry down and then go on top or anything like that. That would take forever. And number two, I don't want to work with the mixing medium, which is kind of like a chemical base for oil paints. It's like a mineral spirit or something along the sorts, and I just don't feel comfortable with that because I already have really bad asthma problems. And I'm not working in a really well ventilated space, so I'm trying not to screw myself over here. So once I did all that research and found out what's the best thing for me, that's when I got them, I think a few months back, the heavy body acrylics. And I tested it one time, and I won't show you that test because that test was really bad. I mean, it was ugly. It's just straight up ugly. So I'm not going to show you that one. But I did get a nice feel of the paints and kind of how to work with them and everything. So yeah. Now let me talk about I'm going to say the hardest part of painting in general, especially because, I'm not a painter by any means. If any of y'all thought that, which I highly doubt y'all did. I highly doubt you guys thought I was a painter just from looking at this, but genuinely, the hardest part about painting is just mixing skin tones. And I've heard that this is such a huge, not issue, but a huge thing a lot of people have difficulties with when it comes to painting, right? Because the skin tone is almost like these muddy type of colors, right? But if you lean too cool with the muddy, it's just going to look gray, and if you lean too warm, it's going to just look orange. So you're constantly trying to have to think about color theory when you're mixing these paints together, so this way it doesn't end up looking like a corpse instead of a live breathing person. And I definitely ran into that problem many times when I was mixing the skin tones, because I spent about 4 hours, maybe a little over 4 hours on just his skin. And every single time I went in to mix the colors, it was either too gray, too red/orange, it looked ashy. Every single pass that I did with his skin tone, it got darker, and I was like, okay, I guess he's just gonna have to live with that. I don't mind it personally, so it doesn't matter to me. But it was just that I couldn't mix his skin tone to what I wanted it to be. So I was like, okay, I guess we're just gonna have to dug this out. He's just gonna become a bronze statue by the end of this, and I'm just gonna have to live with it. But it was so hard to mix a proper skin tone. And, I sat there and I really thought about this, how I'm thinking of like these classical painters and how they just quote unquote know how to do it correctly. And I'm like, Ward, shut up. Like, that's literally not the case. These masters became masters because they were in school for arguably like hundreds of thousands of hours of time of just painting. They were recognized for their skill or their talent beforehand, then got into these master schools where they would learn from other masters, then paint endlessly, endless classes of just painting all day, being apprentices to other master painters, learning skills and techniques and all this stuff. And they only did that. Like, the arts were so highly regarded that these people would be put in these schools and like you were told to just, hey, just learn this. Like, we just want you to become this painter, do this. And that's exactly what they did for hundreds to thousands of hours of just work on these paintings. So somewhere along the way they probably learned how to mix paint, okay? And this is the first time I've ever actually mixed paint on my own. So I just tried to like think of color theory. If the skin tone was too like, I'm gonna say blue, I would try and like combat that with maybe like a reddish hue or something, and I would just constantly come back and forth with like different colors to try and give it some more depth, so it doesn't look like just this like straight up flat brown color on the canvas. And that's why it came out so different every single time I would pass by the skin tone and recolor it in, because I just couldn't get it right. And I guess that's okay because I'm learning how to do it, but it sucks because I feel like I'm always just trying to learn instead of know what it is. And sometimes it gets discouraging because I was like, oh man, like every single time I'm mixing these skin tones up and I'm going back in, it stinks. Like, it doesn't look right. Sometimes it's too muddy, too brown, too gray, too whatever. And at some point I'm like, you know what, bro, he's whatever skin tone he's gonna have at the end of this is what he's gonna have, because I at some point, I think at like the third or fourth hour in, I was like, you know what, bro, I don't think I care anymore. The one thing too that I noticed as I kept, going back into the same areas and painting over and over and over on it, is that it became really like, I'm gonna say like fuzzy looking, right? And it's because I think there was so many layers of paint on top that it no longer started to like have like this nice crispness to it. It's probably because I'm guessing I didn't clean my brushes often enough in between, and it's because I like using the dirty enough brush because I feel like all the paint is on it, and then like, if I could just mix them together and it would be like an easier way to just mix them, that probably like screwed me over, I'm not gonna lie. So this is a valuable lesson to me to just wash the paintbrushes in between more often, because I did do it, but I didn't do it often enough, and that probably is what created this kind of fuzzy or like grainy texture, is that I just didn't think hard enough about the repercussions of painting with a dirty brush. And it also sucks because sometimes I would notice that there were these little dry bits of paint from the heavy body acrylic, and I think it's because when it starts to dry up, it almost turns kind of like almost like gummy. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like little bits of leftover dried up paint that'll just end up on the brush. So I think even though the heavy body acrylics did dry slower, they still dried too fast for me because of how many times I would pass by this. Now, I didn't do the skin all in one sitting, otherwise I think I would have fallen off a cliff. It would have been easier to do that. So I came back and did the skin maybe 2 or 3 times, and even by the end of it I was like, man, I was like, you know what, bro, we're just gonna leave it the way it is. At this point I was like, you know what, before I didn't do enough contrast in the skin, and it was too similar in tone. So I came back into the last swipe, or last session of the skin, I'm gonna say, which is like around here, and I went in with a darker color to give it a lot more contrast. But then after I finished it, I sat there and I was like, damn, bro, did I do too much contrast? So like, it was a constant like, hey, what kind of style am I even going for as I'm painting? Because if I want something really like smooth and light and airy, like let's say like Leonardo da Vinci and how he would do his shading, then that's not what I'm giving. But like, that's not who I was aiming for. I wasn't aiming for anybody in particular. I just like the fact that all these artists have their like signature looks to their paintings. And, you know, I don't know what my signature look is, because this is like the first painting I've done in like 10 years. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might have been 9 years, but anyway, it's like the same thing, whatever. So so the last painting I did was around there. Somewhere in college I took one painting class, and they kind of gave me like the most basic of basic fundamentals when it came to painting. And man, I don't remember anything from that class, I'm gonna be honest with you. It was number one, so long ago, and number two, stuff that I kind of already had a grasp on because I kind of paint on my own already, and not paint, color, and, you know, draw on my own. So stuff I already had kind of a grasp on. So I don't remember much from that class, and I was just kind of mostly winging it here. Now that's kind of dumb on my part, right? And I'll tell you why. The internet is available, right? It's like this thing that exists and has everything on it, and I could have done way more research. And, you know, I'm gonna get on my knees for that one and put my hands behind my back, right? Don't shoot. Just I know I could have done all that stuff, but sometimes when I'm introducing myself to a new medium, I often see this. I just like to go in with it, and I like to like mess around and see what I can do. Or if it's a medium that I'm kind of familiar with but don't know all the way, then I still like to just kind of play around and see what I could do on my own. I think it's just like a nice way to see where I'm at. So like, this is like a nice starter of, hey, you know, you have this amount of skill right now, and you're able to do all this kind of stuff. Let's see where you can go with just that right now before you dive really deeply into the research and stuff. And I feel like it's kind of more fun that way, because at this point, even though, you know, I was like suffering because it's painting and I'm not a painter, and like I've never been like 7-8 hours into a piece. That was a new experience, definitely. But I think through that, it's kind of a nice experience in its own way, where I sit there for the first time and discover like little things about myself as I'm painting, like how I realized it was called painting because of the word pain. And how this is definitely a medium for people who are built different. Okay, painters, like, they already have a grasp on a lot of things like lighting, body, composition, anatomy, all that stuff. Like, dude, like, painters after this truly, like, y'all built different. you just know like so much more than I do, and I will admit that with no problem. So yeah, that's a definite thing right there. The part that I did have the most fun with was right here, the like drapery. Oh, my phone ran out of storage when it came to the filming part of this, so here's a picture of it. But I really had a lot of fun with creating the kind of folds of the fabric. I've always liked doing that. I remember even back when I did take that painting class or a drawing class, one or the other, that we were doing a practice with drapery, and somebody told me like, hey, you're really good with like contrast and like folds and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, really, me? So, so I took that to heart, because obviously here I am still years later being like, oh my gosh, me? So so that's like definitely something. But that was the most fun part for me, was the drapery. Now that part, I feel like it looked nice enough and it looked definitely structured, but I had to go back and forth like always again, because I'm not using any reference of lighting, of folds, of anything here. So that's something that like I'm definitely getting like around like to learning. I didn't like the piece up until this point, I'm gonna be honest with you. It wasn't until I started doing his hair that I was like, okay, you know what, he's not that ugly. Like He doesn't look like complete doo-doo. So at least like the whole like painting process is like, it's very ugly up until like a certain point. Like I've noticed that, and a lot of people do say that painting looks very ugly until the last step, like the final like 1 or 2 steps, and then things come together. That's where it starts to look like an actual painting. And that's a 100%. That's like actually 1,000,000,000% true, because the entire time I was painting this, I was like, bro, like, I don't know if I want to post this. This looks like caca. And I'm like, yo, I'm willing to post like some of my doo-doo art up here, but like if it's extremely caca, I won't even try it. I'm not trying to get blown to smithereens. I'm trying to at least have some kind of like, hey, I can't do it, I swear, I just give you a little bit. So up until I started doing the face, which I ended up really liking, the face and the hair, that's when I was like, okay, you know, we're kind of getting somewhere. I even took that dark color that I used for the hair and the eyes and the eyebrows and stuff, and kind of laid them out across the body here and there. I realized that I do like the idea of dark, heavy shadows when I paint. And, you know, that's usually like an illegal rule to do when you paint, apparently. A lot of painters did not like using really dark shades or like black, and it was because it was too heavily contrasted up against the like lightness of like the skin and stuff like that, or how skin was highlighted in certain areas. But I realized that I kind of like it because my painting was already so contrasted that even more contrast couldn't hurt. So I made sure to try and, like, you know, place it in little areas that I think needed just a little extra, just a little bit. So what I did for the background, very simple, of course, the old classic, the old yeller over here, which is just putting a circle behind the character and then painting the background. I went with this like nice medium tone purple for 2 reasons. Number one, his hair has purple elements in it, so it's very like dark purple, almost like black, with purple and light purple in there, and that's usually what his hair tone looks like. And then up against the drapery, which is like this yellow color, would complement the purple really well. So both of them together kind of made this nice little contrasting piece to where it looks like he's standing out really well behind it, or actually in front of it. I knew that the entire time I was painting this that I definitely wanted some type of a black background, but I thought that if I just did a completely black background, it would be too stark. It would like kind of make it look like he's standing in absolute nothingness, which, you know, would be cool in retrospect, but like it would be also kind of out of place. So I went ahead with the purple and then the black to kind of almost give him like a little like spotlight. And of course, after I finished like the main color of the background here, I also painted the edges of the canvas, and then I ended up with this right here. Is it the greatest painting in the world? Hell no. But you know what, I ended up liking it, and it's growing on me more and more. It is a little fuzzy and it's a little weird, and I think next time I'm gonna look up different methods and clean up my brushes more and stuff to kind of help with that. I did saturate the picture a little bit because it was looking too gray. For some reason, the lights kept making it read off as super gray, and it wasn't that gray. So I tried to give the color back a little bit. But yeah, I had fun painting at least, and I'm gonna try it again one of these days. So yeah, thanks for watching, and remember, I love you. Bye.